Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Toysher, and I am joined today by the owner, the operator, the guy messing with his camera as soon as the podcast is starting, Stephen Rippey. Welcome, Stephen.
That's the best time, right? Right when we start. Not before, but right when we start.
Nope, not the time we spend chit-chatting right before. He saves it for you guys, and we've saved something else great for you guys. We are going to go over every single matchup for Week 10, give you all the starts and sits, the sleepers, the must starts, the how to fill out your lineup going into this week, because, man, we're double digits. That means we're over halfway through the NFL season, well over halfway through the regular season for fantasy, and we're going to get you guys some championships. We're not going to get into Thursday Night Football. We never do. We record this over Thursday Night Football, so sorry. But every other matchup, we're going to go through, kicking it off with a game that is going to cause international strife. It's going to lead to a war between the U.S. and Germany. I'm already calling it. In this time of hostility, the Giants and Panthers, Stephen, we're sending them overseas for the Germans to watch in absolute disgust. Do you see this as an act of international terrorism?
Well, it depends. Malik Neighbors is exciting. I think Tyrone Tracy's exciting. Chuba Hubbard's exciting. So there's some good things that we're sending over there. But yeah, overall, this isn't fun. This isn't the more fun games on the slate.
It is not. The over-under is 40.5, which it could be worse. Spread is Giants favored by 6.5. So that implied total for the Panthers, it's way, way down there. It's miserable. But Steven, in this ball game, what you looking at?
Well, let's start with the Panthers. I think Chuba Hubbard, it's not a terrible matchup. It's kind of the Giants are just average against running backs, and he's just been getting it done week in and week out. Just inked a 4-year extension, which I don't know how you feel about that, Andrew, after you draft a running back in the second round.
They better run the snot out of the football. They better never pass the football again.
Do you know what it reminds me of? The old Panthers when I don't know how this is. No. You're too young for this.
No, I know exactly what you're about to say.
Yeah, D'Angelo Williams and
Jonathan
Stewart, back-to-back years. It kind of reminds me of that. But yeah, no, I like Hubbard this week as an RB2. I think he's going to get enough of a workload. I think Jonathan Brooks sounds like he should be active for this one. How much work he gets, I think they'll ease him into a workload. So I don't expect him to have a big role his first game. So I think Chuba will be close to his normal workload. And then, yeah, I think the only other person I would talk about with the Panthers, I'm still thinking Adam Thielen probably doesn't go. So I like Xavier Legette. It's more of like a wide receiver 3, a back-end wide receiver 3. I think his usage is good enough that in deeper leagues you could start him.
Well, Jonathan Mingo's gone. The guy's been stealing all those targets there. And now he's got all that open. No, Jonathan Mingo. Oh, I mean, he got traded for a 4th-round pick. That had to have meant he was really good. Jerry Jones, man.
Man.
You're going through something.
That was the least exciting trade deadline. It was like we're waiting for some blockbuster deal, and it's Jonathan Mingo.
We got everything beforehand. We got spoiled early.
It was like weeks before, too.
Exactly. And that was some good stuff. So, like at receiver, Chuba Hubbard at the running back position for the Panthers, the Giants are bottom 10 in every rushing stat imaginable, like defending it. So you should have no tough time running against the Giants. And maybe it's competitive. If it's competitive even for a minute, Chuba Hubbard he scores 20 every game that they're competitive or that they win. Somehow they have 2 wins. And he manages to be good even in losses. So Chuba, definitely you can be started. Jatavian Sanders, Steven. You familiar with this man's game?
The Texas tight end, yes.
Were you willing to play him?
That's actually one area the Giants are good against. So
they are.
This wasn't an area, he wasn't somebody that I wanted to recommend yet. I think his arrow's pointing up, but the Giants give up the 3rd fewest points to tight ends. They give up the fewest red zone targets, the fewest receiving touchdowns. They're a bottom 5 unit against tight ends, so they defend that area well. So, I'm not there yet. I need a better matchup.
I've pointed out before, Jatavian Sanders is a name to know. The Giants side of the football. What are we thinking here, Steven? Start your studs?
Yeah, I think so. Is Daniel Jones a stud,
Oh,
Andrew?
well, of course. Well, I mean, the way you view him, he's a stud.
You guys, so Andrew, I'm going to throw you in with my followers who don't like this. That you have the real life quarterback. It has so much of a bearing on you that you can't see through the fantasy points that Daniel Jones can get you. I mean, we're only one season removed from him being a top 10 quarterback. So, yes, I think he's startable this week. I do. If he was a better quarterback, I'd easily have him in my top 10 because it's the Carolina Panthers that he's playing. They give up the third most fantasy points to the position. They're very beatable. Um, I think everybody in this offense is startable. Like, I actually mean everybody in this in this Giants offense because the Panthers defense is so bad. So yeah, I got Daniel Jones as my QB 16. I think he can finish higher than that though. It's just hard to rank him over guys like Kyler Murray, some of the bigger names, the better quarterbacks, real life quarterbacks. But I think Daniel Jones easily could finish as a top 12 quarterback this week.
Daniel Jones is the QB 19 on the season, so I don't think I'm wrong for having some hesitancy with him, even in fantasy. However, I am with you actually. He
Well,
needs Malik Neighbors.
that and he did miss Malik Neighbors for a few games, but his schedule, it's so easy moving forward that I think he's going to be top 15 more often than not moving
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely one you can stream.
Obviously Malik Neighbors, I got him as the wide receiver 3 this week, so he's a must start every week. So we don't even need to talk about him. Tyrone Tracy though, I've got him as my RB9. He's a must start this week. His usage is bell cow usage. Since in games with Devin Singletary recently, they're still giving him bell cow usage. So I love him. Panthers give up basically the most almost at every running back. They rank dead last in almost every category. So you have to start him. And then Darius Slayton, I believe with his concussion, is out. So Wan'Dale Robinson, I wouldn't say is a must start by any means, but I think he's very startable as like a flex play. And then Theo Johnson, I like him a little bit more than you were mentioning Jatavian Sanders, both from this rookie class. I like him as a more of a streaming option this week because again, Carolina Panthers, they give up the most points to the position.
Yeah, shocker. Carolina Panthers, absolutely awful. Trash, garbage cans. Don't worry, they have two running backs. They can't stop anything, though, on the defensive side of the ball. You could petition for Tyrone Tracy to be higher than the RB9.
Yeah.
Now, the top 15 running backs at this point in fantasy, toss them in a bag, jumble them up, whatever. Like, they're all so good this year. We're getting back to the year 2005, whatever. Like, running back bell cow it's in again. It's vogue. It's go in and raid your dad's fantasy closet and wear what he wore way back when. It's here, baby.
Yeah,
I'm here for it. Smash mouth football.
And I think not only is their defense bad, I don't think their offense will be sustaining enough drives that I think that Tracy will keep getting chance after chance after chance to put up points. So yeah, love him this week.
Exactly. That's all you need to know for the international tragedy happening over in Germany. Don't wake up for that one. One you will not have to wake up for because it's being played at noon, as all football should be, I guess, except for the prime time and afternoon slate. We got the Patriots going to Chicago to play the Bears. We've got the number 1 overall pick taking on the number 3 overall pick, Drake May versus Caleb Williams. It could be exciting. I think there's going to be some absolute nonsense going on in this game with these quarterbacks. I'm here for it, though. But, Steven, who can we actually trust in this football game?
Well, I'm actually more excited about the Giants game than this one.
The over-under is higher in the other game, to your point.
Yeah. There's not a lot. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson is the Patriot, if I'm going to start any of them. It's not a great matchup. It's bottom half of the league. The Bears are against running backs. I should say top half of the league that's stopping them. So, yes, because he's getting 80% of the snaps, he's startable, but I'm not expecting a big game from him. We talk about Andrew, how his efficiency has been so bad on the Buy Sell podcast. I think he'll get enough work to get you. I think his floor is okay. I don't think there's much of a ceiling there. And if he doesn't score a touchdown, I'm real worried.
Yeah, the Bears are not. Their scheme dictates that they will give up a little bit of the run in order to completely take away your passing game. But guess what? The Patriots don't really have that anyway, unless it's going to Hunter Henry. Ramondre is startable. I'm not dying to start him, but you can force him in for one more week.
Yeah, I'm not looking to start Drake May, not in this one. Bears give up the fewest fantasy points to the quarterback position. So No thanks on that. And
I
then,
will say I have a super flex league where I'm being forced to start him because it's him or Derek Carr, and I'm
yeah,
just chasing the rushing floor upside
yeah,
with depleted options. So
yeah,
that is at least something we can bake on. Drake May rushing for 50 plus yards every game. At least there's something. But yeah, one QB leagues, do not think about it.
yeah. And I do think that Hunter Henry's startable.
I'm bullish on Hunter Henry. I
Oh,
think he
are
should
you?
be
Okay.
started every single week with Drake May. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Like I thought Hunter Henry was ready to be buried. Don't own him in any leagues, but since we've
Yeah.
got Drake May back, his receiving lines 41 yards, 92 yards, 45 yards, 56 yards. In those games, he had 3 catches, 8 catches, 5 catches, 7 catches. That's phenomenal for a tight end.
Yeah, he's just their only receiving weapon. I mean, they do have Demario Douglas, who's no slouch by any means, but I still think with May, it's probably Hunter Henry is the number one target. Um, yeah, and then if we look at Chicago, I would say start your Bears
Yeah.
normally, but Caleb has just been so bad. I don't want to start Caleb Williams until I see it. Like I thought we saw it the last when he played in London against Jacksonville. Um, but it's just I got to see it again because it's just not happening. On paper, this is a great matchup. I am starting DeAndre Swift. I got him as the RB12 this week. Great matchup. Patriots giving up near the top of the league in the most amount of points, yards, touches allowed to the position. So I like him. And I'm willing to start the receivers. It just kind of depends. I
Fat
have DJ.
Keenan.
Fat Keenan is like a flex at best. A flex just because the matchup's decent. Roma Dunze as a flex, DJ Moore as a wide receiver 3, I would say in this one. That's probably about it. I mean, the matchup on paper is decent for Cole Kmet, but he's been hard to trust lately, so it depends on your league. But definitely Swift, and then the receivers. It just kind of depends on your league. I don't think I'm I'm sitting DJ Moore in any leagues.
The only player for me on the Bears side of the football who is in my lineup for sure is DeAndre Swift.
Yeah,
Absolutely tearing it up. He is projected 71 and a half rushing yards. That's his prop line over here on Underdog. That's great stuff. 90 and a half overall total yards between rushing and receiving. He gets it done. Other than that, if you want to sit DJ Moore, absolutely can. It is this whole offense is super inconsistent. Again, looking at those prop lines, Daniel Jones is only projected 4 less passing yards than Caleb Williams. And it's a comparable
it's.
matchup against another bad defense.
I'm starting to wonder, as far as like the quarterbacks from this draft class, where are we ranking Caleb Williams right now?
He might be number 4.
I know. Like again, guys, these guys are very young. I'm not. We question the play caller in Chicago, but it's not looking great right now.
I'll ask you real quick, one last point. Are you willing to start Cole Kmet in this one?
I had said I think he can be. PFF has this as a 9.5 out of 10 on their matchup scale. They like Cole Kmet in this one, so I've got him as a mid-range tight end too. It really just depends on your options.
All right, get you out of that
Do
gross
we
one up
need
and
do we need a Taysom Hill uh like a barometer for tight ends?
we
Like
absolutely do. He is the line to be tested against. Would you start Taysom Hill and that's what we're going with. I would rather start Taysom Hill than Cole Kmet in this one.
I would too. Yeah. Taysom Hill
Taysom
for me
Hill.
as well. Yep.
Start the Mormon.
Okay.
Bench the Catholic out of Notre Dame. Let's move on to the next one. We got Bills going into into Indianapolis. The dome there looks like a schnook, so I want to keep calling it the Giant Schnooks. It's the Holy Land for me. So the Bills go into Indianapolis, and the Bills are favored by 4, over under 47.5. That means Vegas is really, really banking on that Colts defense stopping absolutely no one, and that is a good place to be putting your bets in. I mean, James Cook has as good of a matchup in this one as we could possibly hope for with that Colts woeful rush defense not being able to stop a single darn thing. Steven, how high do you have James Cook this week?
I've got him at RB14.
Oh,
Is that too
wow.
low? If though I will, there's a caveat with that. Have you seen how many good running back matchups there are this week? I
I'll
think
have to dive into it.
that's the only reason he's not higher is because I was looking at, when I started my rankings this morning, it was like, good Lord, the running backs are good. So like if you look ahead, right ahead of him, I've got James Cook or Joe Mixon. So you could argue Joe Mixon has a tougher matchup. So I don't mind him going ahead of Joe Mixon. But then you got Jonathan Taylor. We know how bad the Bills are. We just talked about DeAndre Swift and how bad the Patriots are. Then we got Aaron Jones against the Jaguars. We know how bad they are. And then we just talked about Tyrone Tracy. Christian McCaffrey's back. We got Breece Hall with an amazing matchup. So it sounds bad. It sounds low at first. But when you look at the names ahead of him, that's why he is where he is.
But you're still thinking it's a great one for him.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely starting him. Indy giving up the most touches to the running back position, the third most total yards to the position. So, yeah, he's in your lineup. I'm actually surprised. Did you say it was a 4-point spread?
4-point spread.
Okay, I had it this morning at 3.5. I was surprised it wasn't a little bit higher than that. And then the other Bills, though. So, yeah, obviously Josh Allen. Khalil Shakir, I like him in this one. I think, hopefully, I think Amari Cooper's supposed to play this week. I'm still going to rank Shakir over Cooper if Cooper goes. But I got Shakir as a wide receiver, kind of a 2-3 right on the turn there. Dalton Kincaid, though, I've got him the highest I've had in quite a while, and it's just based on the matchup. PFF loves the matchup. They give it a 9 out of 10 on their matchup scale. And then if you look at it, the Colts, they give up the third most fantasy points, the second most receptions. They're a bottom 5 in every meaningful tight end category.
They're bottom 5 in just every defensive category.
It's true.
25.5 implied points for the Bills, and it shows across the board. You can start darn near any Bill you can get your hands on. We're not ready to get on the Ray Davis train, and no, Mac Hollins is not startable, but it is darn tempting.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if somebody's just looking at the box score, Ray Davis had kind of a weird, was it a wheel route that he scored a touchdown on? It's not something I would peg Ray Davis for,
He's got weirdly good hands. He's a bowling ball that the ball just sticks to when it gets there.
Yeah. So, but it was a long touchdown. So I'm not chasing that. I still think it's going to be Cook for the most part. I'm just trying to see if Amari Cooper.
He got a limited practice in.
Limited practice with that wrist injury. So we'll see. I don't know, Andrew. I still feel like I want to wait on Amari. Want to wait till I see his usage go up.
I'll play him if he's ready to go. It's just injury related entirely. We saw the snaps starting to tick up, and I was ready to go last week. And then this wrist injury came out of nowhere. So I'd be willing to start, again, any Bill you can reasonably think of.
Yep. Okay. And that include Keon Coleman? Anyone you can think of. Okay.
If he's not hurt, you can put Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's ascended for me. It's just been better film that he's been putting out there. They've been using him in a slightly different way. Keon Coleman's back in my good graces.
Nice. All right. Well, on the other side of the ball, Jonathan Taylor, he's a must start. Bills, awful. You saw what Derrick Henry did to them about a month ago. Jonathan Taylor, maybe not quite a game like that, but he can put up big numbers. So I love Jonathan Taylor in this one. Joe Flacco, though, that was a little bit alarming last week. They just didn't have the ball last week. It just felt like he had like 10 snaps. So I'm wait and see on Joe Flacco. I want to see him go back to good Joe Flacco before I'm starting him.
I was yelling at my TV. The stuff he was doing was just Anthony Richardson, but an old guy doing it instead, very responsibly.
And he can't get away from the pass rush to save his life.
Not a bit.
If they're close to him, he's down. So for that, he's a downgrade. This is a good Bills defense. A downgrade for the wide receivers. Josh Downs is the only one I feel okay starting, and I don't even love it because Bills are tough. They give up the 5th fewest fantasy points to the wide receiver position. We just saw the Dolphins receivers do nothing versus Buffalo last week.
I will interject there. We did see Jonnu Smith get himself a few catches and yards in there, and the Jonnu Smith role that is played with him in Miami, he had 5 catches for 46 yards there. And that's what Josh Downs does for the Colts. A lot of little 5-yard stop and get some yak after. Mm-hmm. That's just fitting against this Bills too high scheme. They're going to completely wipe out Pittman, wipe out Pierce, wipe out Mitchell, and they're going to let Taylor and Downs catch balls underneath all day long. It'll be ugly. I don't think there's a ceiling, but I do think there's a 10-point floor for Josh Downs.
Hey, let me ask you, if you had a quarterback like Flacco, let's just say insert Flacco-like quarterback for the Colts, who do you like better, Tank Dell or Josh Downs?
For a guy playing with Joe Flacco?
Yeah.
I think those are honestly the same player. Josh Downs and Tank Dell are the same archetype.
Yeah, I think they're I'm just really high on Josh Downs. I'm just not as high on him this week.
It's fair. I just think
Yeah.
he'll get enough catches because 47.5 yards, 47.5 point over under. They're going to have to push the ball, keep throwing it, and Downs will PPR his way to a performance.
Yeah, I've got him at wide receiver 19. I think I had him at like wide receiver 12 last week. So
yeah, I think that's perfect.
Okay, cool. All right, what's next?
We got a little AFC West showdown. And I don't know if this is like Broncos get little brothered and you're not here yet, or could this be a little brother smacking big brother in the mouth going into Arrowhead and winning in a game in an upset? The Broncos going to Kansas City, where Steven would love to see an upset, but
I would.
Vegas is saying otherwise because they are favored by 8 in Kansas City in Arrowhead with an over-under of 41.5. Steven, start with your Broncos. Let's get hyped here before we talk about how these Chiefs offense is going to march down the field on them. Bo Nix, we have a disagreement here fundamentally. I will not start Bo Nix in this one, but do you think otherwise?
No, well, I don't. You just don't realize how good of a season he's having. I had to point it out to you, but I won't start him in this one. Not in Kansas City. Not in a game that Denver hasn't won since they won last year at home, but they haven't beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Like ever. Like that's literally ever, correct?
With Mahomes, no, they have not. That's a tough place to play without Mahomes, and they can't get it done. They don't seem to match up all that well with the Chiefs, at least not enough to win. Yeah, so I'm not starting Bo Nix. I don't care that he's got rushing upside. I've got him at QB 20. I don't want to start him this week. I don't really want to start Cortland Sutton either, but I do have him ranked as wide receiver 27. So it kind of depends on your lineup because he has been good. And he's one of these guys that when the matchup looks bad, he still somehow produces. So he's one of those outliers. Like you get him going up against the Jets a few weeks ago, and he was great. And then he goes against the Saints and doesn't even get targeted. So I'm willing to start him, but I don't love the matchup. I'm not starting Javonte Williams. Not only has he looked bad, Chiefs give up the fewest points to the running back position. I want him nowhere near my lineups.
There's no ceiling for Javonte Williams. There's probably a modest 7-point floor. If you really want 7 points, I got a Javonte Williams with your name on it. There's a chance we see Audric Estime get more involved in this game. I don't think we will. I think more involved for Audric Estime standards is what Sean Payton is meaning when he says more involved. I don't see Javonte Williams' role going away, but I don't see either one of them mattering anyway. Bench Javonte wherever you can.
Yep. And then let's go to Kansas City. I'm a little worried about Patrick Mahomes' ankle as far as his rushing ability. You could see he was limited. I thought he was done for the year. I don't know if you were watching, Andrew, when it happened.
He's one of those guys. It is going to be the most gruesome looking injury. He's going to act like he's dead, and then the next play is out there.
Yeah, he does. I agree. He's one of those weird cases where he just doesn't get badly hurt enough to ever leave the game, or he is very tough. I do think he's very tough. It's like Trevor Lawrence. I've seen that guy roll his ankle where I'm like, God, he's out for the year. Oh no, he's fine. He comes.
He's
back
made of
in the
rubber.
next series. Yeah. So, but I do have Mahomes. I got him ranked as QB 9. That might even be high. The only reason it's not lower is they are playing at home. I did like what I saw out of DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce last week. I think Kelce, he always tears up the Broncos. They're just not. This year, they're actually decent against tight ends. They're giving up the 10th fewest fantasy points. I'm not all that concerned about it for him. I think that he has a good game. I think that Kareem Hunt has a good game. I do downgrade the receivers in this one. I really think it's going to be a Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce game.
We saw Patrick Mahomes play 2 games with DeAndre Hopkins, and one of them was limited. But since he joined the team in Week 8 against the Raiders, 18-point game, 24-point game, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. They have a lot of friends who live in Kansas City. They said, we're finding the bare minimum line of how much receiver do you have to have a watchable offense. And they have found the perfect line for Patrick Mahomes. You need a 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins and a 34-year-old Travis Kelce, and that's enough wide receiver to get the job done. I think this is just going to be a different, more potent offense. I see good things coming. I think he's definitely a top 12, should be started quarterback, rest away.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I had posted after that trade that I thought this was a downgrade for Travis Kelce. You get a guy that can earn a lot of targets. That typically takes away targets from other players. No, Travis Kelce, his last 2 games with DeAndre Hopkins, 12 targets and 16 targets. His 2 best games of the season. So go figure. What do we know?
Kareem Hunt obviously must start. He's literally leading the NFL in rushing attempts per game, and they're going to lead in this one, as well as DeAndre Hopkins. You saw him play. Everyone saw him in primetime. You cannot sit him. Must start until we see otherwise.
Yep. I still think, I argue, when Pacheco comes back, we're going to keep seeing more Hunt. Not more Hunt, but we're going to keep seeing Hunt.
Yeah, it won't. Pacheco, he's never gotten 80% of the work. It won't happen. But I do think Pacheco will get the ball back whenever he is returning. Moving on to a divisional matchup down south. This one, the Falcons going to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Atlanta favored by just 3.5. I think they're kind of predicting some sort of interim coach bump here, is all that says to me. Yeah, I'm double checking my sources. That's the spread. That doesn't seem like enough.
I know.
What do you know, Vegas?
What's weird is that's what the spread was last week with Dallas, wasn't it? With Dak under center.
Yeah. I mean, Derek Carr isn't quite Dak, and there is no receiver to speak of on the New Orleans Saints.
I'm surprised by that. I would guess, I wouldn't be shocked if it was like -6 or 7, But what do I know? I'm not a Vegas odds person. This one, though, maybe it has something to do with the division game in New Orleans. You got to factor that in. And Carr, he's not a bad quarterback. He's fine. So that's probably what is baked into it. Bijan Robinson must start, my RB3 of the week. Kirk Cousins, I got him at QB 12. I think that the Saints are going to be doing a decent amount of punting in this game. And Cousins, he might not have to throw a lot, but he'll be on the field enough. He'll probably throw a couple of touchdowns. So I think he's fine, QB 13. Drake London, do you know if he practiced today, Andrew?
Limited today. It feels day to day. I bet he goes.
I've had a hip pointer. Now, I don't want to compare myself to a professional athlete, but man, are those painful. But I also didn't have the rehabbing ability of some of these pro athletes. So he probably
You don't have the injections sitting there that they're going to inject you with and get you back in the game. The Patrick Mahomes magic juice from the playoffs when he rolled his ankle real bad.
Yeah. No, I don't have that. Or, and I don't wear hip pads around the house either. So, but if he's playing, you got to start him. Wide receiver 11 for me this week. Darnell Mooney, he's going to be one of the best draft values this year. He already is. Wide receiver 24 on the week. He should be in your lineups. Kyle Pitts, it's just an average matchup for Kyle Pitts, but he's a good tight end. I got to put him at tight end 8 this week. So he's definitely should be in your lineup. And then I also think Algier is a good start this week. Obviously depends on your league size and your running back situation, but I've got him at RB 34 just because, I don't know, I feel like the spread should be higher than this. He's looked good. They still use him. I could see him punching in a touchdown. And if the Falcons get ahead by a lot, which they could, I could see him being used a lot near the end of the game.
The New Orleans Saints are a top 5 matchup for running back. So, yeah, you could flex a Tyler Algier in a week where we have 4 teams on bye. If you had to, you can. Start your Falcons. It's a great matchup. And on the Saints side of the football, there is a guy named Alvin Kamara. And that is it.
That's it? Well, no, there's Taysom Hill.
Oh, the barometer.
The barometer. That's his name. I'm not calling him anything different now.
The tight end barometer.
The tight end barometer, Taysom Hill. Tight end 10 for me this week. And that's not even a tight end ranking. That's a football player ranking. So, yeah, I think they're going to need him because they have no weapons. They, when I look at the rankings, they've got MVS. Is that their best wide receiver this week?
It might be.
Yeah, and they just signed him recently, so don't love that. For me, it's Alvin Kamara, it's Taysom Hill, and that's it. That's all. Maybe Juwan Johnson, depending on your tight end situation, because he would probably be the second best receiving option outside of Kamara in this one. So I think Juwan Johnson could be used as well.
Go out in the streets, ask strangers, name New Orleans Saints wide receivers. They won't. The correct answers are Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton, Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yep.
No one getting those.
No, thank you. I'm going to pass.
That being said, Alvin Kamara is going to touch the ball 30 times. Taysom Hill, he got 8 touches and 9 touches in these last couple of games. Those are your only viable starters. Chris Olave, heal up, come back better than ever, please.
Yep.
All right. Steelers taking on the Commanders in the old DMV area. Washington favored by 3. This should be a good one. 45.5 over under. Two football teams that have been playing well so far this season. And I think both of these football teams with two sides of the football that have been shockingly good. For the Commanders, that defense has improved. For the Steelers, that offense is actually doing things with Russell Wilson under center. So let's start there with Mr. Russell Wilson, if you're okay with it, Steven.
Yeah.
How
I
high
think
do you have him this week?
starting to wonder if Russell Wilson was put on this earth to piss me off because he was great in Seattle, destroyed the Broncos in the Super Bowl. We finally, you know what? Let's just get the guy. Let's get the guy as our quarterback. And then he's terrible for us. And then now he's in Pittsburgh. He's not looking too bad. So anyway, yeah. Yay, Russell
You're not
Wilson.
mad about it. You're not mad.
No,
You're not
no,
mad.
I'm not bitter. I'm not willing to start him in this one. Washington, it's an average matchup. It's not great. I just think that there's better options this week. I got Russell Wilson as my QB 22 this week. I'm still a little more wait and see on Russell Wilson. I do like George Pickens though. Got him as the wide receiver 18. Andrew, he's got the most missing points we've tracked so far this season, so he's due for some regression. He's just gotten a bit unlucky.
It's infuriating seeing all the touchdowns that man has dropped.
Yep. So I like him. Najee Harris, another average matchup. Is that the way you're seeing it too?
In terms of this being an average matchup across the board. Yeah, because this defense has stepped up and it's been good. Even though the Commanders have been scoring lots of points, the defense has been just good enough to keep them in ball games.
They're giving up the 12th fewest points to the running back position. We'll probably see a little more Jalen Warren in this one. So I've got Najee as my RB24. He has been good recently, and not just volume, Andrew. He's been actually efficient. So I think he's startable. I've just lowered my expectations on him for this week. Pat Freiermuth, hard to trust him more recently, so I don't have him ranked very high. I'm not really looking to start him. It's not that good of a matchup for him either. For me, it's mostly just George Pickens and Najee Harris.
I would agree. Keep an eye on Jalen Warren going forward. Let's see what that running backfield share starts turning into. See if he can't become playable as Pittsburgh has to start playing some more tough defenses. There's a world where Russ throws a pick and fumbles early. Even though turnovers aren't his big thing, now the Commanders are up. Now he's checking the ball down to Jalen Warren because that has been Warren's role. Keep an eye on it. Warren's playable in an absolute desperate situation, but nothing other than that. I speak for both of us, Stephen, when I say we're not playing the Mike Williams game this week.
No. We'll wait. He will score some touchdowns this season with Russell Wilson throwing the ball. That's for sure. But I'm definitely willing to wait a week or two or longer.
Maybe never. It's not me. It's you, Mike Williams.
I also want to point out the Steelers defense. I'm not really looking to start them this week. I think there's better options. We talked about the Giants earlier. I'd rather start the Giants against Carolina than the Steelers. Commanders give up the second fewest fantasy points to defenses. They give up the fewest turnovers. And Jaden Daniels, you'd think scrambling quarterback would get sacked a lot. They're getting sacked the 11th fewest times this season. I'm sitting the Steelers in this one.
Now, that Commanders offense is going up. It's the number one rushing offense in the NFL on efficiency. So not overall statistics and numbers, but on an efficiency basis, they're number one over the Baltimore Ravens. Wow. This is how good of a rushing attack this is. But they're running into the number one rushing defense in terms of efficiency in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, Steven, we're starting Jaden Daniels. Check, of course, every week. But Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, who are we starting there?
Well, just a context to Jaden Daniels, the Steelers give up the second fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. I still have him ranked as QB4. Like, it just shows you how good he's been and how much of good for fantasy he's been. So, I'm playing him, obviously, because I do think people will question that. Like, oh, it's the Steelers. Like, should we not? Just keep starting him. The running backs, though, you had asked about. I am lowering my expectations for the running backs quite a bit because I do think that this defense will be able to slow them down. And I think that, Brian Robinson's getting healthier, but I think they're going to use a little bit more committee than we want potentially in this. So I think that I've got Brian Robinson as RB29. Like I said, the Steelers giving up the 11th fewest points to the position, the 9th fewest touches to the position. And if they're splitting it up a little bit, I don't love it. PFF has this as a 0 on their matchup grade, so they don't love it either. I think that Brian Robinson is a flex in this one. I'm not starting any of the other running backs. Terry McLaurin, he's a wide receiver 1 on the season. I don't have him ranked that high this week. I've got him at wide receiver 17 because this is a bottom 10 matchup, but can't get him out of your lineup.
He's just getting so many targets and converting on so many of them. Him and Jaden Daniels have a perfect mind meld. And I'm with you on the running backs. I think that RB29 line there on Brian Robinson's perfect. There's a world where the Commanders just roll and they score a ton of rushing touchdowns. But it also, if he doesn't get in the end zone, I have a feeling he's not going to pay off in this one. I'm willing to start Brian Robinson most weeks, especially with injury concern. This week, if you have that Tyrone Tracy that you picked up off the waiver wire, 100% throw that guy in. So look at your options. Maybe not play B-Rob this week. He got shot. He's back. He's got the story. No need to play him this week.
No.
All right. Moving on to another great game. Well, it was going to be better. And so Mac Jones is probably going to be the starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, importing the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to get to see Mac Jones playing against the Brian Flores Vikings buzzsaw in this one. Minnesota favored by 4 on the road, over under 45.5. I don't know how the Jaguars contribute their projected side of this at all.
I'm still fine with Brian Thomas, though.
Oh, yes. That's the only spot.
Yeah. So Jacob was asking this morning, because we all got the alert Trevor Lawrence ruled out. Or I don't know if he's been ruled out, but it's highly unlikely he's going to play.
They're talking more so, will he hit IR? Or more than will he play this week?
I didn't even realize he got this shoulder injury.
I didn't until yesterday, no.
Yeah. But it took me a minute. I was like, wait, who's the backup there? I still had like Chad Henne in my head. It took me a minute to realize. I was like, oh yeah, Mac Jones is their backup. You could do worse, Andrew, for a backup. I mean, was he a top 10 draft pick just a few years ago?
I believe he was number 15, if I'm not incorrect.
Was he 15? Okay. So I actually am fine with Brian Thomas. The Vikings give up the most points to the wide receiver position. They're giving up the 3rd most receptions. I think it's fine for him. Keep him in your lineup. It does make me worry about the rest, though. I'm worried about even Evan Ingram because I don't know what kind of connection he's going to have. We know he had one with Trevor Lawrence. I don't know if he's going to have one with Mac Jones. That makes me a little bit worried. The Vikings are good against the tight end position. They give up the 8th fewest points, the 4th fewest receptions to tight ends. And if he's not getting receptions, Evan Ingram's not breaking big plays. So I am a little bit worried about him. I'm probably starting him, but it really depends on your other options. I don't want to start the running backs, though, Andrew. I think you can bench both Tank and Travis Etienne in this one.
I'm definitely trying to. Tank Bigsby, I think, really is that guy. I really do think this will be his backfield next year, but we talked about him on our buy-sell show. They're about to hit a bunch of matchups like this, and it just stinks. It's a just down the middle, hey diddle diddle, right down the middle sort of split for the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield. And there's even D'Ernest Johnson getting involved. Sit them where you can. You're praying for a touchdown or something. If anything, and I absolutely agree on the Brian Thomas side of things. They're going to chuck it downfield because they're going to be down 15 before they even know it. And Brian Thomas is going to be under a couple of those to at least give you a baseline this week.
Yep. And then Minnesota, start your Vikings, like all of them.
I guess the only ones in question here are Darnold. We're saying it's a great stream.
Josh Oliver.
Cam Akers, Josh Oliver. Get him out there. Cam Akers out of nowhere was balling out against my Indianapolis Colts, and I was not here for it.
You know what's funny? In our deep league, I had included, I acquired Ty Chandler as like a throw-in on a trade. And then I'm watching Cam Akers get all of the backup work. And I was like, well, that was just a throwaway.
The league cannot quit Cam Akers. No, we're not starting Cam Akers, Josh Oliver this week. The question marks are, yes, of course, Aaron Jones, great matchup. Get him in your DFS lineup. Yes, Justin Jefferson. Yes, we're streaming Sam Darnold. Will you trust TJ Hawkinson after a absolute just dud in his first week back?
Yeah, I'll throw Hawkinson in there. You know what's funny? I thought Hawkinson was going to be like, I started watching that game and boom, boom. He had like, I think 2 receptions right away. And then I went and checked the box score at the end of the game. I was like, I saw all of the work that Hawkinson got in that one.
That happens to me a lot.
He's still got 4 targets in it. I think that's fine for his first game back. He was 45% of the snaps. My worry is that this game's not close at all, and he plays 3 quarters. And in those 3 quarters, what's his snap share even look like? So because he's tight end and he's a good tight end, and this is an easy matchup, I've got him at tight end 11. So going back to the Taysom Hill barometer, I think I'm going to start Taysom Hill over him, but it's close.
I would think I might start TJ Hawkinson over him just slightly. 45 for, what was it, 49% of snaps, whatever we said, 40-something percent
45,
snaps.
45, yeah.
60% route participation. For tight ends, if that hits 70, you're like, oh, that's a normal week for him. And now he'll get upwards of 80, 90% because that's what TJ Hawkinson is. So sneaky, underlyingly not terrible usage in that first game. So yeah, I am willing. He's just above that barometer for me.
You heard it. Andrew said start Josh Oliver.
Start Josh Oliver in this one. Get out of here.
But sorry, Jordan Addison. I don't know if you touched on him, but yes, I'm willing to start Addison in this one.
Yeah, would like to see a little bit more out of Addison. He's not drawing a ton of targets, but he's just one of those guys who's an end zone machine. Like some dudes just have it. They're just touchdown guys. Touchdowns aren't sticky. They are for him. He keeps finding them.
Yep.
I'm willing to get him in my lineup. Start your Vikings against the Jaguars. Mac Jones, welcome back, buddy. Meet Brian Flores. We got a powder blue, or at least light blue matchup. I have these little like colors on my Excel sheet I make here for the teams, and this just looks gross. The Titans going to Los Angeles to play the Chargers. The spread is 7.5 points in favor of the Chargers. Do some math on this over-under of 38.5. An implied total for the Titans that is absolutely abysmal, 15.5. This LA Chargers defense has been legit. It is of that Baltimore Ravens tree that we saw last year dominate and take over the NFL, and it's got some studs in it. Steven, where do you want to start here?
Well, this is that 38.5 over under that has Greg Roman and John Harbaugh's mouth watering. Like that excites them. That's the kind of game they want, because it just means they can run the ball as much as they want in this one, because they know that the Titans aren't good enough to score. So in this one, I'm hesitant to start Justin Herbert. I know things have been trending up for him. This just doesn't have the kind of shootout potential I'm looking for. And the Titans are actually decent against quarterbacks. They give up the second fewest completions and the fewest passing yards. So I'm not starting Justin Herbert in this one. I love the matchup for J.K. Dobbins. Not so much because the Titans defense is a slouch. They're not actually. They give up the second fewest total yards to running backs, but because that spread is so high, they're gonna be running it a lot. So I like J.K. Dobbins in this one. The wide receivers, not a great matchup for them. PFF doesn't love the matchup either. I think Ladd, you can still start Ladd, but he's probably the only wide receiver I'm looking to start for the Chargers.
If you start Ladd, the upside is if you get a lucky touchdown, you get the only passing touchdown thrown. He's gonna
get like 5 or 6 targets in this one.
Exactly. He's their target leader. He's their top guy. I love what I'm seeing in the future for Ladd, but in this one, I'm looking for other options. I'd start Jordan Addison over Ladd in that other game.
I would too.
It just more upside there. J.K. Dobbins, though, get him in. Absolute bell cow usage. Dude, you're coming off an Achilles ACL tears. Which Dr. Magic is John Harbaugh doing out there, Jim Harbaugh doing out there in LA? It's working.
Now, Andrew, do we know, is it going to be Levis? I know he's practicing in full. Have they announced if he's going to start?
I have not heard a thing. I'll check my little sleeper updates here.
It says, the latest says they've yet to name a starter. This is 4 hours ago. So
I will tell you firsthand, Brian Callahan hates Will Levis with a fiery passion, and he will play on the injury thing as long as he can.
Yeah. I don't really, Andrew, I don't want to start.
Does it matter? Does it matter which quarterback starts here?
A little bit. I like it a little bit better with Mason Rudolph, to be honest. But so Tony Pollard, I got him as my RB23 just because he's a good running back, getting good usage. Don't love the matchup. It's a really bad matchup. Good defense he's going up against. They're giving up the second fewest fantasy points.
Spears is also back this week.
I know. for what feels like it's been a month at least. So Tony Pollard has benefited from being the only running back in the backfield. That might not be the case. So really lower your expectations for Pollard. Kind of hard to sit him. I get it, but I'm definitely lowering my expectations. And then same thing with Calvin Ridley. Don't love the matchup, but he's at least flex worthy. The Chargers giving up the second fewest receptions, and he's kind of just been living off receptions.
Yeah, I mean the Titans will be losing in this one, and so they'll have to throw, and those balls will be thrown at Calvin Ridley unless it's the end zone where Nick Westbrook-Ikine
Yes.
will try to score a touchdown for the 24th straight game, whatever he's going on right now.
That guy has a touchdown in 5 straight games, yet he still hasn't made my top 200. So
as
figure.
he should not. So
Yep.
tough one in this one. Titans. Maybe we'll start some Titans later on. It is not right now. All right, got a Christmas game going on here. Not in terms of the season, but in terms of the colors. We've got the New York Jets taking on the Arizona Cardinals out in the desert. When I looked at this spread when I was making my sheet here, it was just even. An even spread for the Jets and the Cardinals. See if it's moved. It's now favoring the Jets by 1 on the road.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And the over-under is 46.5. The Jets, man, the defense is starting to falter a little bit. The offense is starting to roll. It's making things a little bit more fantasy friendly for us.
It is. And I'm starting to like what I'm seeing with Rodgers and the receivers he's got there. It's starting to click. Like, I think I'm not saying we were necessarily, speaking about the Fantasy Guys crew, but I just think in general, there was a lot of pressure put on the Jets offense and Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, he had one series as a Jet last year, so he's a 40-year-old quarterback. It wasn't looking good right away, but he also had just a gauntlet of matchups. Like his first game of the season, he's playing the 49ers on the road. They had the Bills. They had some tough matchups in there. And it didn't start out that great last week. Like the first half didn't look good, but you saw it catch fire in the second half. He and Garrett Wilson are in sync right now. Devontae Adams has caught on. He's got, arguably, with those two, one of the best 1-2 punches at wide receiver. So I love Aaron Rodgers this week. I love him. I love Breece Hall, and I love the receivers, Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. I think people, I don't get the quick hate for Breece Hall. I know it's been a little bit up and down, but guys, just keep riding it. He's going to keep giving you those big games. I know it's not been the number 2 overall running back pick that he was expected to be, but I think he's still going to have really good games. I got him as my RB4. This is just a great matchup for all of them. They all should be in your lineup.
The only thing that is actually, I guess we'll say, actionable for Breece Hall since Devontae Adams has come over is they're not throwing the ball to him as much because they have another receiver. A big trend I always keep pointing out is when receivers are good, the running backs get the ball less in the air. And when there's no receivers, the running backs eaten. He's had 3 targets and 4 targets since Devontae Adams got going in this team. So I think that's going to keep trending, but he's still rushing at an incredible clip.
Yep. And the matchups just keep getting better and better. And this is one of those. So anyway, start your Jets. And then on the Arizona side, it's tougher for them. Jets have a good defense. This is why I have Kyler Murray ranked 1 spot ahead of Daniel Jones. Just based on matchup. Got him as my QB 15. Jets giving up the 4th fewest points. To your point, they haven't been looking as dominant. PFF still hates the matchup for him. They give it a 0 on their matchup grade. But it's hard to bench Murray. It really just depends on your other options. But I don't have him as finishing as a QB1 this week.
I think it's absolutely fair. It's still a good pass defense. It's never been a great rush defense, and that's really started to falter. That's what happens when you invested everything into the mind of Robert Saleh, a defensive head coach, and then you tell him to kick the road, and now you just don't have your mastermind anymore. Yeah. And I think it's going to keep hurting them. But for now, it does make for a tough matchup, I agree, for Kyler Murray, who we really can't trust much anyway.
Yeah, no, he's very hard to trust, just not passing for enough yards. James Conner, you start him every week. Trey McBride, you start him every week. Marvin Harrison, I'm still starting him, Andrew. I got him at wide receiver 26. I still believe. Guy's good. but this offense just isn't as good as we hoped it would be. So he's going to be up and down. But I don't think that Sauce Gardner is as good as he wants you to think he is. I think he's good at holding.
Wow. Sauce, you hear that? This man, he's out there on Twitter golfing for the fans. He's interacting with them, and this guy, Stephen Rippey, hates you.
I don't hate him. I just don't think he's as good as he thinks he is. Give me Patrick Surtain. Give me PS2 over Sauce. Sauce holds a lot. He does a lot of holding.
That was not a sentence. Give an NFL sentence. Give me PS2 over Sauce. If someone in the 1980s heard us talking, they would have absolutely taken off their shoe and beat us to death with it. Yeah. You do not have to start Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. I'm telling you, you don't. The Cardinals offense, their scheme is stale what they're doing with him. They're going to put him lined up next to Sauce Gardner the entire time. You do not have to start him.
And we know that Sauce will hold him, so.
It just won't get called every single time. But you do not get points for pass interference.
That's true. Or holding
Get that
calls.
in my leagues. Alrighty. We got an exciting one. This would have been more fun at the beginning of the season. This offense isn't quite rolling. Hopefully we get Nico Collins. But the Lions going to Houston to take on the Texans. It is Detroit favored by just 3.5. We're used to seeing these Detroit lines. Detroit by 10. Detroit by 8. By just 3.5 on the road in Houston. Over under 40.5. Steven, I need your take. The Texans are wearing their battle reds. The all red helmets. Glossy, shiny. Mm-hmm. Are you in or out on the Texans battle reds?
No, I'm out. I don't love it.
Me too.
Yeah, it's too much red. It's like, I don't like the Bears all orange. Not a fan of those either.
No one likes those.
No. So they're kind of in line with that. No, I actually do. I didn't like them at first, but I do like the Texans' new uniforms. I just don't like that version of them. But let's talk about fantasy, Andrew.
Okay.
So, CJ Stroud, I don't think Nico Collins is going to play. He hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday. He could practice on Friday, but I don't know. I don't love the way it's trending. I'm starting to think he sits another week, which would make me like Tank Dell a lot more. Let's just say if he does play, the matchup is so good you have to play Nico Collins. The guy was averaging over 20 points per game when he was healthy, so you have to play him, but I don't think he goes. Tank Dell must start. I think regardless, I'm starting Tank Dell. He looked good last week. He looked quicker, Andrew. He looked like he's almost back, fully back from that injury. And the Lions still haven't fixed their secondary. That's been bad for years now. They give up the most receptions, second most receiving yards, partly because teams are playing from behind. But yeah, so I love Tank Dell on this one. Don't love Joe Mixon as much, but that just means he's ranked as my RB13. So I actually don't have him ranked as an RB1 this week based on matchup, but we know he'll get enough work that he should be fine. Just know that the Lions are giving up the 5th fewest fantasy points, the fewest touches to the position. So not a great matchup for him.
Good job, NFL, making this a Sunday night football game. But yeah, the Texans offense isn't been as good as we would have hoped. Over per NGS on NFL Pro, overall passing efficiency, Houston ranks 17th. Overall rushing efficiency, Houston ranks 22nd. Yeah. Houston's pressure rate, they rank 30th in protecting their quarterback. This has been a below average to around average offense. And that's not what anyone was expecting this year. That being said, that means they'll probably get down early and have to throw. And CJ Stroud does immaculate things. And there is a scenario where CJ Stroud, don't get it twisted. CJ Stroud is that dude. He is the next up and comer in the NFL. So there is an outcome where he just goes nuclear, takes over the game, and they score points. Well, that's the only way the Texans win. Well, here's the scenario where the Texans lose is what's likely is they get way behind and have to throw. So get the passing game going. I'm with you on Joe Mixon. Tank Dell, I think, would be benefited from Nico Collins being there just to free himself up, but I'd still like him anyway.
Yeah, I think either way it's fine. I think I wouldn't adjust him much in my rankings regardless.
No.
It would probably stay similar. I do think you saying CJ Stroud is that dude. I think so too. I think he is young Joe Burrow. Not that Joe Burrow's young or old, I should say, but he just looks like he's got that it factor. Lions side of the ball, you just always start him. I mean, not the greatest matchup for the running back, so I do have Gibbs and Montgomery lower than probably any point this season. They are on the road. The Texans giving up the third fewest points to the running back position. They're a bottom 12 unit in every meaningful category. They're bottom 5 in the more meaningful categories. So I don't love the running. I'm not as high on the running backs this week. The wide receivers, though, you always start Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's actually a good matchup for the wide receivers. Jameson Williams, I believe he's back this week. I'm willing to play him as a flex option.
I'm on Amon-Ra watch right now. I don't know what happened. Before, the thing with Amon-Ra was 20 points every week. Book it. The upside, not so much there. Like, he's going to have his big games, but he's not like Tyreek Hill. He's going to get you a floor. Since the bye week, he's had, was it 13 fantasy points because he saved it with a touchdown, but he had 37 yards. Then he had a big 112-yard game, then a 7-yard game, then a 56-yard game. Yeah, Where's our top 3 draft pick that's supposed to be good every single week?
You know, I'm not going to do a victory lap, but I put something out there in the offseason. We were talking about this. I think we were comparing dynasty players, like who would you rather have? I don't remember the exact conversation. But I said Amon-Ra St. Brown gave me a little bit of Jarvis Landry vibes. And I didn't mean it as like necessarily a really bad thing, like because Jarvis Landry I thought was a pretty good wide receiver. He was a great fantasy receiver, but just a slot guy, just like an exclusive slot guy. I don't know. Amon-Ra St. Brown gives me a little bit of that. He needs a lot of volume, and he hasn't been getting the volume. He's had one game. He had that game in week 2 against Tampa Bay where he had 18 targets. Since then, he hasn't had more than 8. And last year, this was a guy that would have double-digit targets every week. So, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about it for him just overall not being the receiver we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. The Lions defense got good enough to where they're steamrolling a bunch of teams. The bad games have come against the Cowboys. They blew them out.
Played from behind.
Yeah, and the Tennessee Titans where they won by 50. So that's just all it is. I still think Amon-Ra's good. Steven still thinks Amon-Ra's good. It's just
I still think he's good. Yeah, I don't want that to and I thought Jarvis Landry was good. I just thought, remember when Jarvis Landry was like the wide receiver 5? And I remember being like, I don't know. That feels right. That's how I kind of felt last year with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then
more
Sam
like
Laporte.
Almond Fraud St. Brown. Got him.
That's so good. No, and I don't mean that's good. That was terrible.
No, I'll be seeing myself out.
And then Sam Laporta. I'm going to ask you, Andrew, the Taysom Hill barometer line. Where are you at?
That's disgusting. How dare you even ask that? I'm starting Taysom Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
me too.
I'll go vet this. Sam Laporta, 2 games over 10 fantasy points. 2.
We told you guys not to draft him many times. Didn't like the guy, and he's been way worse than we expected. And this game, the Houston Texans give up the fewest fantasy points, receptions, and yards to the tight end position. So yeah, I think he's definitely benchable this week.
Kyle Pitts 2.0. Hello, Sam Laporta. So, great Sunday night football game. It's going to be excellent to watch no matter what, watching 2 great teams play in NFL. Hats off to you again. We exported the garbage of the Giants and the Panthers, and for ourselves, we kept 2 great primetime matchups. We got the Miami Dolphins going to LA. Where is AJ to get the flight distance, Steven? I'll start looking it up.
I thought he was going to text us ahead. Oh, no. Wait, who's playing?
It's Miami and the LA Rams.
Oh, you know what? We never explained he can look up other ones besides the Seahawks. We only were doing Seahawks games.
So we have the Miami Dolphins taking on the LA Rams in Los Angeles. That means the Los Angeles Rams are favored by 1 with an over-under of 50.5. And this is just what fantasy football dreams are made of. 2 teams who are celebrated for a great offensive mind, good one great and one okay quarterback, some great offensive weapons. This is what we want to see on a Monday night football matchup. There's so many games are going to be decided in this one, Steven. Which side of the ball would you like to start on?
Can you start, Andrew? My thing's not okay. I got it. Never mind.
I'll start us off with saying that it is 2,300 miles that the Miami Dolphins will be flying.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to get it pulled up and it was like glitching on me. So I'm excited about this one. Like you said, we finally got, some health. It was looking bad. Like we didn't have Tua. We didn't
for both these teams.
But for both these teams, I was going to say we didn't have the receivers. Hopefully, Puka Nacua can keep his gloves down in this one. But
that was not a punch. That was garbage.
That was ridiculous. It's a bad matchup on paper for the Dolphins. I don't care though. I've got Cooper Kupp as my wide receiver 9. I got Puka as my wide receiver 13. I'm starting them, even though the Dolphins give up bottom 5 numbers to every wide receiver category. Don't care. Starting these guys. Matt Stafford, kind of the same thing. I'm just not buying this Dolphins defense. I still just don't think.
It was still the Houston Texans effect. It's that they scored so few points that no one threw on them.
Yeah. So I like Matt Stafford in this one. PFF gives it a 10 out of 10 on this. I've got him as a QB 8 this week. I think this one could meet the over-under. You know, it could be one of those shootouts. I'm hoping for it. So yeah, this is start all your Rams. Are you chasing Demarcus Robinson? Getting a couple
you can
touchdowns?
Totally play Demarcus Robinson. Like that is actually a flex play you can get yourself into. Yeah. I'll start dragging out some names as I meander on here, but if you have a dude who's in a terrible matchup, you seriously can consider him. Some dudes that you have ranked similarly. Deontay Johnson, we won't talk about him because he's Thursday Night Football, but Josh Palmer against the Titans, the answer is Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah.
Jalen Tolbert against the Eagles or Demarcus Robinson, Steven?
I'd probably go Tolbert there.
We got some Demario Douglas against the Bears or Demarcus Robinson.
I might go Demarcus.
That's what I'm saying. Like in these terrible low-scoring point matchups, you can absolutely get him in there. Any Tampa Bay Bucks wide receiver or Demarcus Robinson.
I'll probably go Demarcus Robinson. Yeah.
Get him in there. The man who steps up when there's no one watching him because he doesn't matter. That is when you want Demarcus Robinson scoring fantasy points. He does not like the limelight.
Yep. And I mean, it's crazy. Like all those games, he had so many chances from week 3 to week 7 to do something. And we recommend him as a waiver ad and he did nothing. And as soon as they have both receivers, he puts up 15 and 22 fantasy points. So
good for you, Demarcus Robinson.
2 touchdowns each week.
Miami Dolphins, Steven.
Miami Dolphins.
There's obviously Tyreek Hill. 2 is a good start in this one.
I think 2 is a good start. Obviously, Achan's a good start. Jalen Waddle, though, God. The matchup says yes, but what he's done says no. Where are you at? I'll take your opinion first.
I will view him as a wide receiver 3, which
right,
says a lot for me because he's a really, really good wide receiver, but their offensive line has just been hot garbage, and I think that persists in this one. The Rams are the most efficient pass rush this season. You wouldn't have guessed. Without Aaron Donald, they've transformed themselves into the most efficient pass rush.
This is weird. Yeah, it's... Although I am willing to wait and see it happen with Waddle. So it's a good matchup. Yes, on paper, in a normal, because I still think he's a good wide receiver. I still think Tua is a good quarterback. I don't know what's going on there.
I just don't think they have time to throw the ball downfield. If they're throwing it downfield, it's to Tyreek, and that's just how it should be. But that does mean that is why Jonnu Smith is getting a ton of catches, and Devon Achane is the leading receiver for the Miami Dolphins.
It's just insane. He is getting... I was looking at his rushing attempts, but his targets haven't been that much different. 8 targets each of the last 2 weeks for Achane.
Achane and Jonnu Smith have more of the target share than Tyreek Hill since Tua's come back.
Crazy. Where are you at on the Taysom barometer with Johnny Smith?
This is not one I've had to think about. Let me see. I have to go look up how good the Ye old Rams are at stopping the tight end. I'll go Jonnu. I will put Jonnu tuck him right in there with TJ Hawkinson above the Taysom Hill barometer.
All right. Sounds good. I'm gonna go Taysom Hill.
You like you some Mormon menace. All right.
I'm willing to just could he do something? Yes. If Achane gets dinged up and misses a couple series, yes. He's not somebody I'm dying to put in my lineup.
Where do you view him? RB what? Ish.
I've got him RB 32. So
I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Back in RB3, viable flex play. I'd play Raheem Mostert over a lot of wide receivers, but to your point, there are not a lot of running backs I'm willing to start. And that's just the NFL we're in right now. Go running backs.
Yep. Andrew, before you, because I think that was
That was
technically our
Monday Night
last game,
Football, baby. Yep.
but I think you somehow, no big deal, but you skipped the 49ers Bucks. So we should probably talk about them.
Disaster. Let's cycle back to it, Steven. The 49ers will be taking on the Bucks in Tampa Bay. San Francisco is favored by 6.5. And this is another one that this is what fantasy dreams are made of. An over-under of 50.5. Which side of the ball you want to start on?
We'll go with the home team, Baker Mayfield, and so last week, Baker was putting up a sort of a dud. And then he had that last series and he threw a touchdown with 25 seconds left and was able to get you high-end QB2 numbers. I think he finishes the QB 14 last week. But I don't know, man. That high over-under is tempting, but the 49ers are still giving up the 10th fewest fantasy points to the position. And God, I don't know, those receivers, like Sterling Shepard was his go-to guy last week, and it was just Baker looks good. Baker looks really good.
The animal.
But yeah, Cade Otton, I don't know. Help me out, Andrew. Where are you at with Baker in this one? Is he a QB1 for you?
I would do some switcherooing, I think, where I'll say where you have him in your fantasy ranks. You have him at the QB 10, and right behind him you have Tua, Kirk Cousins, CJ Stroud. I think I'll drop him down behind Stroud just because I think those are guys who are going to have to throw. And then right ahead of Jared Goff, who is a good quarterback, good offense, but I don't think we'll have to have the game stripped.
Yeah, I think, and for people that I do update the rankings. I try to update them. I do them on Thursday, try to update again on Friday, and then ideally at least one more time, either late Saturday or early Sunday. As I'm looking at this though, I'd rather start Aaron Rodgers than Baker Mayfield. And I got them separated by quite a bit. So I think that Baker Mayfield will probably come in somewhere around my like QB 15. I've got him at QB 10. That's too high, I think, because this is another tough matchup. And like I said, not that he didn't get bailed out. Like he scored a legitimate touchdown against the Chiefs
tie the ball game.
To tie the ball game, but it was so close to being a dud, you know. So that's my point. So I think he's a mid-range QB2 this week, or maybe at best a high-end QB2. As far as the receivers go, Cade Otton, he's a must-start every week. Not a great matchup, but I think he's getting 10 targets like 3 straight weeks in a row now. So you gotta start him. I think Rachaad White will be used enough in the receiving game. He won't do much with it, but I think he could get you 6 catches in this one. So I think I've got White as like a high-end RB3, kind of RB2 territory. I don't really want to start Bucky Irving in this one because I think they'll be able to bottle him up. And then the receivers I'm not touching.
No, none of the receivers. I will let the receivers duke it out and figure out which one of them I want to start. Again, I'd rather start Demarcus Robinson on Monday Night Football over any single one of those guys.
Yeah.
And I'm with you on the running backs, both just kind of RB3s for me that I'm willing to start, not excited to start, with their both unique and exciting roles. And either one of them could break a big touchdown. This is such a cool offense to watch in Tampa Bay. I'm fully bought in for what they might do in the future.
I love what I've seen out of Baker Mayfield. He's fun to see be good again, or be good. He started out his career, he wasn't good, but he's fun for football. I like the dude, so
I like Liam Cohen a whole lot. I think that that man might find himself a job as a head coach somewhere. Yeah. That's the offensive coordinator for the Bucs.
But for the 49ers, start all of them. The biggest.
Guess who's back?
I know.
He's again.
Back. And supposedly no pain. So all of you who are, what would they be? 2-7. All of you people who drafted McCaffrey and you're 2-7, you finally got him. This is the week to start him. I have him ranked, Andrew, as my RB8. Only because I don't know. They've got good running backs that have been playing well on the team. They don't need to give him a big workload. So that's my only hesitation with ranking him higher. If we see him get Christian McCaffrey usage from last year, he's the RB1, especially in this matchup. But I think they shouldn't use him that way. I think they've got good enough running backs with Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerrero that this should be more where he's getting not elite usage. I think they should scale his workload back, let him play longer in the NFL.
I just think as opposed to 20-25 touches, he's going to get 10 to 15. But 10 to 15 against a bad Bucs defense and it's Christian freaking McCaffrey
Yeah.
rested, it's
Yeah.
going to be insane.
Yeah. So RB8 on the week, but wouldn't be surprised if he finishes higher than that. Brock Purdy, I love this week. I've got him as my QB5. I think Tampa Bay's awful. We just saw Patrick Mahomes put up his best game of the season against them. I think Brock Purdy could do the same thing. Love Deebo Samuel in this one. Love George Kittle. I keep looking at, because I reference other people's rankings. Why are people not ranking George Kittle higher? I see him in rest of season rankings and I see him in weekly rankings, always ranked around 4. And I'm like, the guy has been insane this year. He's averaging is he averaging 18 points per game?
He's
the clear cut
tight end 1 in half PPR.
And it's not that close. Like there's a big gap between him and Brock Bowers in points per game. So yeah, George Kittle must start every week. He's my tight end 1. I even like Jawan Jennings if he's a go this week because of like the high over under. I think Jennings has looked pretty good in the games he's been healthy. So I'm willing to start him. Are you willing to start Jennings?
Absolutely. And we're back to the 49ers offense where I'm really sorry, Mr. Brandon Ayuk. It's an unfortunate injury, but we've always said when one guy goes down, everyone gets to eat and everyone's going to eat.
Yeah. My last question is Jordan Mason. I don't know. I know he's been banged up. If he's playing, you put him in your lineup, or you just like, no, they're not even going to use him.
I don't know if it's him or Garendo, so I'm leaning towards it being Garendo as the backup.
And all of you who have Jordan Mason, you got him off of waivers, and you weren't able to trade him. Hey, you had a good run. But not every good thing can last forever.
Hold on to him for a second. Let's see what happens. We could be shocked. It could be they run the ball 25 times every game and Jordan Mason gets 12 carries. It's worth holding on to.
Well, I will say, Andrew, I traded for Christian McCaffrey in a redraft league for Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks because I was a pretty stacked team. And I was like, this, I think only had like 1 loss on the season. I was like, this could really help me. The person that I traded with just had no running backs because McCaffrey was not playing. I ended up trading George Pickens. I don't know if you'll like this move or not, for Mason and Garendo. Because I was like, we weren't sure about McCaffrey. Like, is he going to come back? Is he going to, but I just wanted all the running backs there. And I was pretty set at wide receiver. But yeah, I think that probably in most scenarios, those 2 backup running backs, they're probably not going to do a whole lot while McCaffrey's healthy.
Yeah. No, that was a bad trade in hindsight, Steven. You looked like an idiot. And no one cares about your fantasy league, but I do care about the listeners. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Fantasy Guides podcast. Appreciate you being here. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe button below. Keep tuning in. Subscribe, and rate review on whatever you're listening on audio podcast. Get yourself a weekly season guide for less than the price of a Papa John's pizza. No, honey, no pizza tonight. I'm getting a draft guide so I can win my league. And that's an investment because there's going to be a pot that you're going to win at the end of the year.
You're going to have your wife's going to be angry though.
Let her know that you've got a bet, an investment that can't miss.
But you're helping us out.
We're better than crypto. So get out there, get yourself a draft guide. Follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, everywhere at Fantasy Guides. Get in my DMs. I'm more than happy to take them. People are in Steven's DMs. People have responded off the last YouTube video. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Please at ToysherFG on Instagram or on X. I'm Andrew Toysher. That's Steven Rippey. Steven, say goodbye to the friends at home.
Good luck this week, guys.